Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we were talking about the Quran. The verse that is under discussion is being displayed before you. This is Allazina yattabi'una Rasul al-Ummi. In the interest of time, I'm just going to read the translation. This verse actually tells us that Prophet Muhammad's arrival had been depicted and prophesied in the Old and the New Testaments, in the Torah and in the Gospel. So it says, those who follow the messenger, the unlettered prophet whom they find described to them in the Torah and the Gospel, he enjoins upon them. He enjoins virtue upon them and forbids them to do vice. He makes good things lawful to them and prohibits what is foul. He relieves them of their burdens and shackles that weigh down upon them. So those who profess faith in him, honor him, support him, and follow the light sent down with him shall surely succeed. ठीक जा रहा है? So, as you can see, viewers, that this is a very important verse of the Quran, and besides some other verses, it tells us that the name of Prophet Muhammad was actually found written and described. His character and his personality was described in the Torah and in the Injil, and this is something that is now quite an irrefutable reality in the light of the work that has been done regarding the prophecies of Prophet Muhammad found in these ancient scriptures. So we know that the Prophet's name was actually Ahmed, and the Quran itself in Surah Saf tells us that Prophet Jesus had come with this special mission to give the glad tidings of the arrival of the last messenger of God. The word gospel actually means good news. So Injil, of course, the Aramaic name, it actually means good news, and this good news, of course, was regarding the arrival of the last prophet of God. So that is precisely one of the reasons that Prophet Jesus was sent, that he had prophesied the arrival of the last prophet. Prophet Moses in his own times, we know in the book of Deuteronomy, which is the fifth book of the Torah, has said that the Almighty has said that he would send his messenger amongst his cousins, which means the cousins of the Israelites, and of course there could be no other than the Ishmaelites themselves. And we know that amongst the Ishmaelites there was no messenger who had come after Prophet Ishmael, so there could have not been anyone implied but Prophet Muhammad himself. And then, of course, off the top of my head, I can recall the Gospel of John telling us that Jesus telling his disciples that he's going to go away and send the Prince of the world who is going to stay with them forever, stay with people forever, referring to the, of course, the prophet of Prophet Muhammad, the last prophet, whose messengerhood and prophethood is supposed to extend till the day of judgment, and that is precisely what Jesus had, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had predicted. So Prophet Muhammad was someone who was very well known to the Jews and Christians of his times, and that is why the Quran and in fact God was very angry when they saw him, they recognized him, they were fully confident that he is the one who they were waiting for, but they still did not accept him. Yes, there was a part of the people of the book who did accept faith, and they became Muslims, but a major part of them did not do so. So the Quran has said that this is something that is absolutely, unforgivable, because you were waiting for this last prophet who was sent with this mandate that he'll relieve them of all the burdens which they had actually put on their own backs by being rebellious and by being the target of God's punishments, as a result of which certain directives had become very harsh on them. So this is something that was told very clearly to them. And in fact, in today's Bible, if you would like some more conclusive proof, I can tell you that if you pick up the Arabic version of the book of Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible, you'll find that the words Sadiq and Amin for Prophet Muhammad are mentioned. And unmistakably, Sadiq and Amin in the context can only refer to Prophet Muhammad. And so in this book of Revelations, the Arabic part, if you just look through any Arabic translation of the book of Revelations, it will say regarding Prophet Muhammad, Yud'a Sadiqan wa Amina, that he will come and he will be called Sadiq and Amin. And we know in history that there is no other person except Prophet Muhammad who is known by this name. So about them, the Quran has said that, well, because of the fact that they did not listen, they did not obey, and they were the first ones to deny the Prophet. So the Quran says, La takunu awwala kafirin bihi, which means that don't be the first ones to deny him, because you were supposed to actually welcome him. You were supposed to be the first ones to profess faith in him, and now you are doing the exact opposite. So it is quite clear, dear viewers, that the wrath of God and the harsh verses of the Quran regarding the people of the book that you find on occasions in the Quran is because of the fact that they had fully recognized Prophet Muhammad. They had fully recognized, but out of arrogance, out of jealousy, that why was the Prophet sent amongst the Ishmaelites? The Quran says that they did not acknowledge him. Yes, there was a small group who did acknowledge him, who professed faith in him, but they were very small in number. So now we move on to the next section, which is Hadith, and this Hadith has been reported by Imam Muslim in his Al-Jami al-Sahih. It says, Abdullah ibn Abbas stated that God's messenger said, he who does good deeds to have them publicized, God will publicize his humiliation on the day of judgment. And he who shows off, God will make an example of him. So, viewers, we can clearly see that how showing off, how being boastful of our good deeds is something which does not hold favor with God. And it is something that we must always try to refrain from. All good deeds should be done between a person, or left in the notice of one's own self, of course, and between his God. Otherwise, if these deeds are done to make other people think that a person is very pious, then we have lost the spirit of doing that good deed. So the Prophet has said that a person who does good deeds so that he gets famous, then God is going to make an example out of him. He is in fact going to humiliate him. And of course, this refers to his fate on the day of judgment. Because on the day of judgment, if you come up with this mandate that you had done a lot of good deeds, but all of them were done to make people impressed by you, or make them realize that you are a very superior human being, then of course inside the case was absolutely different. We were a hollow personality. The Almighty is not going to be. He's not going to entertain us in this matter. In fact, as you can see, that the words are وَمَنْ رَأَى اللَّهُ بِهِ, which means that he who shows off, God will make an example of him. So showing off, of course, something we know is is an expression of superiority. It's an expression. It's in fact a superiority complex that we might suffer from. So we have to specially keep ourselves in check, because good deeds which are done for the sake of themselves, or for the sake of earning purity, are the deeds that we should undertake. Otherwise, this would only mean that we have a different agenda. We don't have the purpose of cleansing ourselves, not the purpose of purifying ourselves, but our real purpose is to show off and to let other people know what we are actually doing. And this is not going to sit well with God. We next study the Bible, and this is something which is this is a sentence taken from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter number 5, verse 4. It says, happy are those who are sad, for they will be comforted. Of course, this is something that Jesus said to his disciples, that if you are sad in this world because of the suffering that you are undergoing in this world, and don't think that this is something which is going to last forever, you shall be compensated heavily. You shall be compensated in a very, very profound manner, as long as you know that there is going to be a hereafter, as long as you believe that God is going to be just. And we have to remember, dear viewers, that this world is a place of trial and test. It's a place in which all of us go through various testing times, which make us sad, which make us dejected, which make us feel low at times. But we have to understand that in this world, if we are passing through bad times, it is not necessarily because it's a punishment from God. Similarly, if we are being rewarded, or we are living a comfortable life, it's not because God is pleased with us, because joy and sadness both are states and situations which are meant to test us. So if we understand that living in comfort or having a success story in life does not mean that God is, or necessarily mean that God is pleased with us, it's like a test for us. It's like something which God wants to put us through, and wants us to find out whether we are thankful to Him for all the favors that He has blessed us with, or we become arrogant. Similarly, if we are passing through trying circumstances, He wants us to see. He wants to see whether we are patient, whether we persevere, whether we are steadfast, and we know that this is a form of trial. And if it is something that we really understand, and as you can see from this, the verse that we have just studied, happy are those who are sad, for they will be comforted. Beautiful words, which mean that they'll be compensated for this sadness, of course, which results from suffering, which results from trials, tribulations. And these trials and tribulations, dear viewers, we have discussed them, this aspect a number of times, that all these trials and tribulations are meant at times to lift us up, to bring us closer to God, because when we are passing through these sad times, we have this opportunity to come closer to God. Similarly, tough times, they make us tough, and that is precisely what at time God wants us to become. He wants us to become strong internally, so that we can face stronger trials in future. And for this, when we pass through trials, we become stronger, we become more and more acclimatized to such situations. We become people who can manage the crisis. So when a person who is undergoing crisis time, he is able to call up his reserves, then that something is going to help him or her in his future life or her future life. So trials themselves are a blessing of God at times. And as we also know that these trials and tribulations are something that have been the part and parcel of all human beings, including all prophets of God. So if you read the Quran, if you see from the Quran and from the ancient scriptures, that all prophets of God, in some form or the other, they passed through very testing times. In fact, some of the trials were really, really very tough, and they sailed through these trials in a very, very perseverant and in a very steadfast way. They did not complain. They showed fortitude, and they became very, very special servants of God. So, with this, we come to the end, to the third section of our study circle. Now we go on to the fourth segment, which is like a moderated segment. Bisma, our coordinator, will be moderating this session. And basically, this is a session in which I would like all of you to give your views and express and opinions regarding the topic under hand, so that we are able to help each other in through our own experiences and through our own knowledge, and that is how to stop wasting time. So the thing that has to be the topic that is under discussion today is how can we stop wasting time? Because just a short introduction to this is that time is something which is of supreme importance. Time is something that is going to really give us the opportunity to do a lot of work, to multitask, to make ourselves useful, and at the same time we are able to spend more time for enjoyment, for relaxation, and with our near and dear ones. So wasting time or procrastinating is something that we often become plagued with, we often become inflicted with, and more often than not we find this tendency in our younger generations also. So let us discuss how we can stop wasting time. I mean, an advice to all of us and to maybe our younger generation. Over to you, Bisma.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Thank you so much. So for me, I realized that the best way to stop wasting time is I try to stick to a routine. The importance of sticking to a routine. I think social media has truly entered a phase in our lives where I think it's completely taken over with TikTok and all the apps that completely keep us engaged. It's like we've come to a point where we can't even sit for a minute. That concept of boredom, which is supposed to be actually so constructive at times because it kind of
Mm.
calms you down, you just kind of let your mind waver, that has gone. Everybody always wants to be
Mhm.
online, and that I think has
Mhm.
really, it's a thief of joy because it
Mhm.
puts us into competition with everyone we know. We constantly trying to one up each other. I think the best thing for me has been the routine, following a routine and sticking to it, and just keeping your phone face down, keeping the volume down, just having a few people who should be able to reach you, and not picking up everybody's phone and responding to everybody's text. I think that's also another thing. The frenzy of कि अभी जवाब देना है. One
Mhm.
has to wait. I think that's very important. There should be just a couple of people, like it used to be in the past, who should be able to reach you every time. You should not be available to everybody all the time. So that's my thought on it. If I don't know if it makes sense, but for me, I think
Yes.
non-availability is something which
Mhm.
I really
Correct.
hold dear to myself.
Yes, that is quite well taken. And one thing that can stop us from wasting time that comes to my mind also is the fact that if we can make a checklist of things like a small timetable that we can draw for ourselves for the next day, I mean, this is something that has been the practice of many successful people in the world, that they get hold of themselves, they know what they have to do tomorrow, they plan their lives in a way that they have a calendar of events for themselves. And a calendar of events, of course, something used to be very common, but I think there has to be a calendar of our own activities as well, in which we know that tomorrow or day after tomorrow, what am I supposed to do? What are my office duties, or how should I exactly divide my time? So you see, if you divide your time, make a timetable for your own selves for the next couple of days, and a checklist of that timetable should be maintained, because today with the gadgets and the phones that we have, it's very easy to have that checklist in your own phones. A reminder can be sounded at various intervals, which can tell you that now the time has arrived for different activity. Please take care of another activity. And of course, that is something that we have to plan. I mean, unless we plan our lives, someone is going to plan ourselves. I mean, we will become we'll become the cogs of someone else's machine, because you see, if you don't plan yourself, then you'll become the part of someone else's plan. That is a given. So you have to take control of your life, and the important thing that we have to understand is that it's one of the biggest assets that we have, and this is one asset that every single human being on earth has. A person may have money, a person may not have money. A person may have assets or things that he can use to become comfortable in life, and some other people could may not have this. But time is one thing. Time is one thing which is available to every human being on earth. It is just a question of realizing how important time is. You can make and break things because of time. You can create a lot of things because of time. You can, as I just said earlier on, multitask, do several things at the same time, and especially people who are at leadership positions or in leadership positions, for them, multitasking and being very punctual in observing these time schedules is also something which is indispensable. And having said that, I will also say that being punctual is part of not wasting time, because now you know that if your activities of the day are planned, and each of these activities have a time schedule, then obviously you have to go by them. And if you also look at how God has arranged this world for us, how beautifully everything is timed: sunset, sunrise, noon, all these phenomena of nature, all these elements of nature, they all come and go by time. How exactly with the second things are aligned with us, which tells us how God has made this world abide by this tide of time, and how important it is to be on time. In fact, one thing that I have learned from my teachers is that if you want to be on time, if you want to reach a place on time, then always be before time. So if unless you are before time, you can never be on time, because you see, when you're targeting a particular time, you might get delayed because of some traffic rush, because of some unwanted maybe tire burst or something like that. But if you target reaching a target, or reaching a time schedule which is before the time, let's say 5 or 10 minutes, then it is quite likely that small contingencies will be taken care of. So is to be on time, it is essential that we be before time. This is something that is quite necessary. And also, we have to be individuals, I would say, that should not be, I mean, ultimately, they don't should not become clocks themselves. I mean, they should not become machines in themselves, as if they start ticking like clocks. So, of course, that extreme is not something that must be targeted. But at the same time, as you have also said, Bisma, that relaxation and turning ourselves out, and turning ourselves, I mean, giving ourselves more time, and also saying, I mean, refusing commitments that we know might be a burden to us. It takes courage at times, but yes, this has to be done. So, wasting time is something that should not even figure. I mean, every single second counts in this life, and people who achieve in this world, they actually are ones who do take into account even a single second, and they don't waste time.
Yes, Dr.
So,
Salim, that's why I feel sometimes, sticking to a routine people have made it to be something boring. Routine is something so sacred. You wake up at the same time because, as you said, the sunset, the sunrise, everything is a routine. We know when it's going to happen. So just that thought
mhm.
process, and as you said, overcommitment. I think with social media, everybody wants to do everything. That I think has really taken a toll on everybody. I have a few raised hands. Siddiqa
Right.
Sadiq, please
Mhm.
unmute your mic and say what you need to say regarding this important topic today.
Sure. Thank you very much. I'd like to add two things. I'd like to follow up on what Shehzad Bhai just said. And I think James Clear in Atomic Habits has really rightfully shown us how we can just do little tiny baby steps to accomplish our routine or whatever discipline we're trying to target and make a schedule. And what I wanted to add myself was I think what has helped me is speaking to our elderly people. जो भी हमारे इर्द गिर्द हैं, or even if you can have access to a retirement home or a nursing home, and you go and talk to them and listen to them how what they regret not doing in the time that they had, and that is a huge
Mm.
reminder
Mm.
in just
Mm.
appreciating the time that we currently have.
That's
That's
a that's a very splendid suggestion, I would say, Siddiqa. Yes, that I mean, people who have maybe who are reaching the fag end of their lives, they know what they have lost, maybe, or what they might be regretting. And I think one of the things that people do regret, even if they are not very old, I mean, people who are in middle ages, we know that what we have lost in the shape of time and how we could have utilized time best. And having said that, I think it's never too late in life. It's just the question of realizing as soon as possible that we should. I mean, if we have been wasteful in the past, then we should not be. We should not continue with this attitude in the future. So, thank you very much for this brilliant suggestion.
Thank you. Farooq Jabin, please unmute your mic and ask, actually say what you need to say regarding this topic. Farooq Jabin, if you can hear me.
जी 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 मैं मेरा क्वेश्चन इस टॉपिक से थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट है
नहीं, हम लोग इसी टॉपिक के वी डिस्कसिंग एक्चुअली एवरीबडी नीड्स टू काइंड ऑफ कम अप विद व्हाट हाउ दे कैन what they do to keep themselves on track. So that's what we're doing today. Anybody else? Otherwise, we will continue with what we're thinking. I have no more raised hands at this time, Dr. Saleem. So how about you tell us, or I can say something if you want me to regarding this topic. I feel sometimes it's very, very frustrating when you try to explain to the younger lot, as Siddiqa just said, that how we as parents have wasted our time when we were younger. I sometimes feel kids only learn when they make those mistakes themselves, because they seem they have so much time, and as I think we become a little older, we realize that time is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. So we realize the importance that that's the only thing that we don't have, time. Everything else, as you said, everybody has, people can have money,
Mhm.
people can have beauty, people can have,
Right.
that's something. But I think sometimes it's a sad reality that people only learn from their own mistakes. And especially I feel
Correct.
that's the struggle we
Mm.
have in the Western society now,
Mhm.
where I think kids haven't given that ownership of, that they make their own decisions, and they, are responsible for themselves, and, they feel that the parents shouldn't be telling them too much. So I feel sometimes that is also very important, that, kind of having that communication with your children, sitting them down and telling them,
Mhm.
wasting time on gadgets,
Mhm.
it's almost become a shaitani kaam, I feel, the gadgets that are in our lives. So I don't know what the best way
So I
is.
think that one of the things that we have to understand is that because of this very strong wave of children, I mean, children letting go of themselves and they're falling prey to these gadgets. My experience in this is that instead of maybe limiting them or maybe banning these gadgets on them, or maybe being a little stern on them, I think a better strategy is to build something in parallel, which means that create something more attractive for your children, so that if they are wasting time on very ordinary things, they get to realize that they can accomplish much bigger things in life. For example, I can tell you from what Japan has done and many other developed countries, that they have created gadgets. I mean, they have actually instilled creativity in their children by offering them to make different models, be they art models or science models or things that they can make from their hands. So, in other words, what they have done is that they encourage children to indulge in creative activity. So, creativity is one thing that really, I mean, is relished by all of us. And when we create something and we make something, it gives us a sense of achievement. And so, if instead of stopping your children from doing certain things, we have, I think, a more wiser and a more possible way, I would say, is to divert their attention to things that are much more attractive. So that is how I think things would work for our children, because you see, they become very stubborn. It's difficult to argue with them, and more often than not, I have seen parents ending up in a total lack of communication, or because of the fact that they become very strict regarding these gadgets. So I think we have to be innovative, and that innovation means that let us think of different attractions. They could be outdoor attractions, there could be outdoor games, there could be time spent in the park, there could be, workouts, etc., etc. So many other diversions, especially diversions that are attractive to the personality type of our own child. So every child has a personality type, and if we are able to provide them with alternative distractions, which are at least the same, if not exactly more, but have the same attraction for them, then maybe it's something that we can achieve. But at the moment, I don't find this innovation in the parents. They are more vindictive, I would say. They are more dictatorial, which I think is not the right way in controlling our children.
That is very correct, Dr. Saleem. But I also feel with Japan, I feel they've done it as a nation. They don't, I think when they start teaching their children, that's how they begin. So sometimes, that also I
Yes.
think is so important, nurturing them from when they are babies. But we don't do that, sadly.
Right.
Mohtaram Saab, if you have a question, if you have something to say, I thought that I saw your raised hand. Muhammad Ali Mohtaram,
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम
Ghulam Ali
शहजाद साहब
Mohtaram.
एंड जी
जी
गुलाम अली मोहतरम
जी जी कहिए.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम शहजाद साहब नॉर्मली मैं इसमें सिर्फ ये पॉइंट ऐड करना चाहता हूँ जो हमेशा मैं बच्चों को और लोगों को बताता हूँ कि अपना अच्छा टाइम अपनी नालायकी में नहीं खर्च करें व्हाट आई मीन टू से इज कि बी ऑर्गेनाइज अगर आपको कहीं पे जाना है आपको झूठ बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है कि हमारा टायर पंक्चर हो गया था ये हो गया था आप लिख के रखें कि क्या काम आपको करना है और हर चीज को आप प्रायोरिटी के ऊपर करें बेसिकली हम नॉर्मली आप किसी बच्चे को या किसी को बोलते हैं तो दिल से अच्छा हम ये भी कर लेंगे नॉट लाइक दैट आपको हमेशा एक काम अगर डेलीगेट किया जाता है पिन पॉइंट किया जाता है तो आप फौरन करें उसको और अपने रिमाइंडर्स के लिए पोस्ट इट नोट्स अपने पास रखें आप कोई भी चीज आपको लिखनी है चाहे आपको सब्जी लानी है चाहे आपको बैंक जाना है कुछ भी करना है तो आप उसको लिख के रखें तो मेरा एक स्टैंडर्ड जुमला होता है कि अपना अच्छा टाइम अपनी नालायकी में नहीं खर्च करें आप दिस इज ऑल आई
Correct.
वांटेड टू ऐड
ठीक है. I think if there are no more discussants, we can move on to the Q&A, because it's going to be a shortened session today.
Yes. We can do that. Any questions we have? Dr. Saleem, I had a question regarding the gospel. What about the Song of Solomon where Muhammadam is mentioned? What is that? Is that the prophet?
Yes, that too is something which is very telling, and you'll find the Song of Songs by Solomon. There are a lot of work has been done. In fact, one of our contemporary scholars who passed away some years ago, who worked in our own institution, his name was Abdul Sattar Ghori. So he has specifically worked on this prediction or prophecy found in Solomon, in the book of Proverbs, the book of Song of Songs itself, I would say. It's called Ghazlul Ghazlat in Arabic. And yes, that is a very telling prophecy regarding Prophet Muhammad.
And then what about Bakka? Bakka is also mentioned.
So Bakka is the original name of Mecca, and Bakka is mentioned in the Psalms.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Saleem. I see no more raised hands. Please, if anybody has any questions, this is the time to raise your hands. Okay. Ruhi Rasool, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sir, since childhood we are taught Qur'an Pak as Nazra, and we are never encouraged to read its translation uh, at all. And it's very late in our lives. We set our goals and we keep
Right.
studying worldly type of studies and try to achieve whatever our goals are. And it's very late in our life that when we realize after some bad thing happens to us that we are missing something, and we after that we start studying Qur'an Pak with the translation. And but by that time I feel it's very late, and you can't really understand it properly as you should if you start it earlier. So in later stage of life, how can we I mean mm, fulfill this whatever deficiency we have in our
I think
self
you have
in
answered the
this
question
regard.
yourself. It's a question of realization, self-realization. As soon as you
Mm,
realize that I mean, we actually have deprived ourselves of the greatest treasure that we could have obtained, which is communication with God. We should immediately start about trying to understand the language of the Quran. It's never too late in life. We can always learn Quranic Arabic, and if that is a little bit that difficult, then of course translation should always be handy. And the one way through which we can compensate our own deprivation is to become advocates before our children and our grandchildren, that they, at least now they have time in life, they should not waste this time and start using this time by just spending, let's say, 10 or 15 minutes every day with the Quran, and especially with the translation, because you see, as you've rightly said, mere recitation is something which has become the norm of Muslim Ummah, and even later years when people pass away or they have to read the Quran because of some trial that they are suffering, again that is just a recital of the Quran without even understanding what we are saying. So all in all, it's one of the, I mean, most neglected books of God, of all times, I would say. So it's just a question of realizing that we are actually missing out on a huge treasure, and we can only uh, understand that treasure by simply having access to a translation. We don't have to go anywhere. These translations are found in our own phones, in our own copies of the Quran lying at home. We don't have to make much effort for that. So it's so easy to browse through a Quran translation on our phones. Even the tafsirs are available on our phones or on our tablets or laptops. So the easy access today has made it very, very, I would say, possible for any type of learner to have this access from the Quran. I think the important thing is to create this awareness, create this realization that we are missing out on a huge treasure, and we have to just, I mean, put our foot down and make this effort right from today.
Thank you for that, Dr.
Thank
Saleem.
you,
Akram
sir.
Bhatti Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम
चौधरी
अस्सलाम।
बात से मेरा क्वेश्चन है बच्चों के बारे में जो adult है in their 40s, and you say that when they are adults you cannot force them to do anything, fine, but when you suggest them, some of them they say, well, you know, they just change the routine. They, like when they come over, they will read namaz with me, or when I go over there by to meet them, they will read namaz and ask my grandkids, does your father read namaz by himself? I doubted it because and they said no, grandpa, he only reads namaz when he comes here, when he goes there. So and then you said, I used to have argument with them, and then you waste your time. I wasted my time. I started reading, like, no, I will admit, very late in my life. But Alhamdulillah, I've been at it like in the last 14, 15 years, and now I understand much more than I did before. And once I heard that one of my kids says, well, we read, no, when we'll start doing that when we are at his age.
At this
He didn't
age,
say that to me, but I heard that. So how to handle this situation? I'm worried about to tell the truth, about one of my son in the routine.
I think you see, this is a worry that we all share, and it is a question of understanding that at times we start doing these remedial measures much later in life, when our children have become adults and they have fixed habits. So the lesson that we have to learn is that this is something that we must ensure when our children are growing up. I mean, that growing up age, which is between 5 and 10, in which a child enters into life, in which he or she becomes aware of things, that is the time that you have to make that or have that habit developed of understanding, reading the Quran, maybe. And and also not only the Quran, I would say, but also the prayer. So, but when that has not happened, then we have to be patient and realize that, well, we did miss the bus, and when we miss the bus, we just need to be patient. And whenever we get the opportunity, tell them the reason why we need to pray. You see, one of the things that I see missing today is that we speak in imperatives. We just order our children around, which is, of course, not going to be. It's not the right way to accomplish things. I think the best way to do things is to make our uh, people, our audience, aware of why are we asking them to pray or to fast or to read the Quran. So the utility, the wisdom that is behind such noble endeavors must be divulged in a very prudent way. And I can tell you that if we explain to them the wisdom in the right way, the hikmah in the right way, it's going to really have an effect or impact on them sometime or the other. It is because that normally we don't explain the wisdom. It is because that we are always speaking in imperatives that stop doing this or start doing this, that the child gets irritated and annoyed. And I think all of us would share this, that we too would become irritated when people start telling us to do and what not to do. Unless, of course, the wisdom, the philosophy, the hikmah, the underlying reasoning is explained. And I have seen this, that it really works with many children when you tell them why we think that certain things need to be done.
I agree 100% with you, but point is that I I have learned your advice that I do not force them, do not have argument with them. But then I don't do that now. But I feel disconnected with them because I
I
let
mean,
them
you
do
see,
whatever do. I
we
never
have to
argue.
understand that as a grandfather or as a father, your connection should not just be through religious directives. You should connect with them through sports, connect them with them through jokes, connect with them through light conversation, connect with them through their own interests, like so many things that they might feel interested in. And you can educate yourselves on those things. So you see, your connection should not just be through religious directives. There are so many other planes of connection. And I would suggest that if you utilize those planes, you'll find that connectivity coming back.
That is so true, Dr. Saleem. I don't see any more raised hands, but I have to agree with you 100%. When we apply that to our lives, you start connecting with your kids at a level which is, about movies or about books or about just, talk to them about their friends, sports. I think they kind of start softening to the advice also. So I've noticed, like, in a few weeks, if you make an effort not to kind of keep reprimanding them, and then you come back to them with just
Right.
having discussions with them, social
Mm-hmm.
discussions, political discussions,
Mm.
life discussions, they come kind of, start becoming, a
Right.
little more receptive to the idea of
Mm-hmm.
having, and you can kind of put in little nuggets of wisdom in the middle of that, and
Correct.
kind of it's almost like, I don't know if it's that's the way to do it, but that's what I've learned of late in
Mm.
life. But that is how it is.
Mm.
Don't see any more raised hands at this time, Dr. Saleem. It's 8:47. So if you want to end the session,
So,
or if you want to say
yes, I
something,
think
then
so. Okay, I
okay.
think we should end here. Inshallah, we'll be back tomorrow with the Quran session and the future one, inshallah, next week.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. See everybody tomorrow. Khuda Hafiz.